Okay, moving on to item 5B. Will the clerk please read item 5B into the record?
A resolution honoring the U.S. Senate's designation of October 14, 2025 as National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, recognizing the importance of protecting free speech, encouraging open dialogue, and condemning political violence.
Councilman Williams.
Good morning. Thank you, President Crow-Iverson. For those of you who may not know, Charlie Kirk was a member of the United States Air Force Academy Board of Visitors, so he was relatively close to home for at least a sector of our community. And they released a statement saying, "We are shocked and deeply saddened by the murder of Charlie Kirk, a member of the U.S. Air Force Academy Board of Visitors." The Board of Visitors chairman, Congressman August Pfluger, shared the following about Mr. Kirk. "I had the privilege of serving alongside him on the Air Force Academy Board of Visitors this year, inspiring the next generation of service members together. My heart aches for the Kirk family as they navigate this unimaginable loss. Please join me in lifting his family and our entire nation up in prayer." Mr. Kirk was a passionate champion for our academy, its timeless mission, and the extraordinary cadets who have dedicated their lives to service before self. Our prayers and condolences are with Mr. Kirk's family and loved ones as they mourn his loss. And from my perspective, I never thought something like this would happen in my lifetime. You get to, at my age, you get to hear about JFK, you get to hear about Martin Luther King, but to have it happen in America is, I think, at least for me, it was something I never expected. But at least what I've gleaned from the experience is we all need to continue to bring love and grace to all of our interactions, mostly with the net metering we're going to be talking about later today. Lots of love, lots of grace, lots of understanding. And again, most of you are here to talk about net metering, which I'm also excited to talk about. But again, love and grace as we interact with each other on a daily basis. A resolution honoring the U.S. Senate's designation of October 14th, 2025 as National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, recognizing the importance of protecting free speech, encouraging open dialogue, and condemning political violence. Whereas Charlie Kirk was fatally shot on September 10th, 2025 in a targeted act of political violence while speaking at a public event in Orem, Utah. And whereas on September 18th, 2025, the United States Senate unanimously adopted Senate Resolution 403, a resolution expressing support for the designation of October 14th, 2025 as the National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, in recognition of his contributions to civic education and public discourse. And whereas, in passing the Senate resolution, lawmakers from across party lines affirmed that the principles of open debate and the peaceful exchange of ideas are fundamental to America's constitutional republic. And whereas the resolution encourages educational institutions, civic organizations, and citizens across the United States to observe that day in remembrance and reflection. And whereas the City Council of Colorado Springs recognizes that no individual should be threatened, harmed, or assassinated because of their expressed beliefs, that freedom of speech must be vigorously protected, and that respectful civil discourse is essential to the life of a free society. Whereas the city encourages public institutions, schools, universities, civic groups, media, and individuals within Colorado Springs to observe October 14th as a day to reflect on the values of civility, respectful disagreement, and the importance of protecting discourse from violence or suppression. And whereas the memory of citizens who participated in public life, even when their views were controversial or strongly debated, serves as a reminder of our shared responsibility to preserve open dialogue, protect dissent, and condemn any violence intended to silence speech. Now, therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colorado Springs that the City Council hereby honors the U.S. Senate's designation of October 14, 2025 as the National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, and affirms its support for the principles behind that resolution. The City Council condemns all acts of political violence, intimidation, or assassination carried out in an attempt to silence speech or beliefs. The City Council reaffirms that freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the open exchange of ideas are core to constitutional republic governance. and that no person should be harmed, threatened, or silenced for expressing their convictions. Dated at Colorado Springs, Colorado, this 14th day of October 2025, Lynette Crowe Iverson, Council President.
I'll bring it back up to the dais for any comments. Councilman Donaldson?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. First, I want to say that Charlie Kirk was murdered in cold blood, and I support the strongest penalty for his murder, which in the state of Utah is death. But beyond that, what I worry about here at City Council in Colorado Springs is that we, in doing things like this, aren't seen as an apolitical body. We're not elected as Republicans. We're not elected as Democrats. We're just elected to do certain things for the citizens of Colorado Springs. And essentially, as those things are provide public safety, take care of our roads, take care of our parks, things like that. It may not be glamorous, it's not national news, but it's what we're elected to do. And what worries me is that we alienate, and we've seen that with the emails we've received. We've received probably almost 200 emails now, and I've seen 3 that were in support of this, and all the others were against it. We're alienating citizens who we need to maintain their belief in us as fair and apolitical. So regardless of my personal feelings about Charlie Kirk or what he spoke about, I think this is a mistake. Also, there were 4 of us who never even saw this resolution until we started receiving emails that were upset about it. Also, we're not going to allow public comment today on this resolution, either here at this moment or at the end of the day when we allow public comment really for anything not on the agenda. That's extremely unusual. In fact, I don't know if we've ever done that for a resolution.
That's not true. The end of public comment is open to any public comment.
Okay, well, I think that's different than what was explained yesterday. So are citizens to understand they can comment on this public comment today? At the end of the day? Yes. Okay, I guess the caveat there is that I think it's full. I think public comment is filled with other items. I don't want to mislead people where they come thinking they're going to get to speak and then they don't. Is that correct, Madam President?
The public comment was only on the resolution because we don't ever take public comment on resolutions. But public comment at the end of the meeting is always open to public comment of any public comment.
Then I'll take it that means there's going to be time for citizens to speak. Citizens have asked, why does this get special attention? For example, not the legislators who were killed in Minnesota. And I think that's a fair question. So again, I don't think this is going to have its intended consequence. If that was to bring people together, I think it's actually causing concern among citizens that the city council body is becoming more political and bringing national partisan issues into what we deal with here when we have plenty of other issues local to deal with. And because of that, and because of the fact that we're not going to allow citizens to comment on this today, and I would say that is unusual. Usually we say, hey, is there anyone that wants to comment on this? And then people come up and say things about the resolution. For those reasons, I would ask that we table this. I make a motion that we table it.
Councilman Rainey?
Well, I think we need to see if there's a second on the motion. Sarah?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Let me record that first, then I can put your motion in.
So the motion is to table the resolution We have a motion from Councilman Donaldson and a second from Councilman Hingham.
Right.
Right, so we'll vote. Are you pulling? There you go.
Madam President, I would ask that we allow any comment on that motion before we vote on it.
We've already voted.
Nancy. And the motion fails on a 4-5 vote.
Councilman Rainey?
Thank you, Madam President. I will say that I had a speech prepared, and on my drive in, I actually I balled it up. I decided to not give some really structured speech and just kind of to speak directly from the heart. And there's going to be a little bit of duality in what I say. So hopefully you clearly understand the words that I'm trying to convey. As my colleague, Councilman Donaldson stated, the murder of Charlie Kirk is horrendous. I think everyone will agree that the prayers and thoughts for his wife and kids and family and friends continue to echo across this country. One of the things that I think we can all agree on is that there is no room in our society for political violence. I think we all can agree on that. No one should lose their life for speaking out. Matter of fact, that's why all of you are sitting here, because of freedom of speech. If that was not the case, you would not be sitting here today. And those that are in the hallway and those that are downstairs and out on the sidewalks. I will tell you, a lot of you may or may not know this, but Charlie Kirk was scheduled to be in Colorado the day after Utah. He was scheduled to be in 2 different locations. In one of those locations, I was actually scheduled to be there. And through a local radio station and some other folks, there was an agreement to introduce me to him in order to invite him to an event, nothing dealing with city council, but something outside the scope of regular political activity, for him just to speak to people. So there are a lot of things about Charlie Kirk that I think we can all agree, whether you opposed him or whether you were for what he stated. The one thing that he did is he galvanized a very unique movement of civil discourse. And I think that is something that we have to get back to as a nation. We have to. Forget about just Colorado Springs, but as a nation, we have to get back to civil discourse. So I want to take the time to quickly just read this one little statement. Frederick Douglass, who definitely was one of the great Americans who was very adamant about free speech, and he wrote one of the finest speeches of free speech that you would ever want to hear, and I highly recommend, if you have time, Google it and go out and take a look at it. It's called A Plea for Free Speech in Boston. And one of the statements he stated is, in it, he declared that liberty is meaningless where the right to utter one's thoughts and opinions has ceased to exist. And that's where we're starting to get to as a society, is that because I may disagree with you for whatever reason, your words don't count anymore, or my words don't count anymore. And that's not who we are as Americans. It's not. Whether it's Frederick Douglass or Lenny Bruce or JFK or Ida Wells, Ronald Reagan, whether it's President Trump, and now Charlie Kirk. We are at this weird crossroads as a nation. And I do hope that today helps everyone reflect that is this the society that we really want to be? Even today, there's a lot of angst and there's a lot of anger on a lot of topics that are on the agenda. But I would hope that respect and dignity is at the forefront of that civil discourse. We can have different ideologies, but if respect and dignity is not what we are starting with, then we've already failed. Now, I will be very blunt. This is the second part of what I was saying. I will not be voting for this resolution. I will not. But hopefully what you caught from my words is that I do believe in what Charlie Kirk was trying to accomplish. Because whether he was galvanizing a young GOP base or whether the folks that opposed him, they started to come out, especially young people, and started to articulate themselves. People in college campuses across this great nation started to articulate in places that they would never speak out publicly on. And that's our next generation. I look at the faces in this audience. I mean, you know, we're getting older. I'm getting ready to turn 50 next month. We're getting older. So we got to prepare the generation behind us to do it the right way. So I will leave you all with those words. That hopefully we reflect on respecting each other and having some dignity. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilman Lineweber.
I wasn't really going to say anything today because there's so much stuff going on, but I really appreciate what Roland brought up, but I don't think the audience understands or the people watching really understand. The emails that we got were despicable. Several emails said, "I wish I pulled the trigger." Several emails were full of raging hate. We as a country have to pull back and understand that that's not who we are. We can't let that define us. We have to find a place of discourse. And for those reasons, I actually will be voting today for it because I want to elevate what Charlie Kirk actually represented. He represented a civil discourse. He represented, let's have a conversation. Let's discuss how we can find common ground. Because what we end up doing is we end up finding this place that, heck, 60, 70, 80% of what we believe is the same. We all value very similar stuff. And there's some fringe things that we may never agree on. But I have never, today for the first time, I thought about what's my exit strategy if a gun showed up today. I have never felt that, ever. I am really glad that this dais is bulletproof because for the first time, we have extra security today. It's just not okay. That's just not okay. I shouldn't have fear. And fortunately, I have a deep faith in Christ, and if he takes me, he takes me. And I think that's what Charlie Kirk kind of represented. I was really moved by that video that we watched, and I hope that's the way we all reflect, is that we live the best life we can, and we honor everyone, even if they don't have the same beliefs as us. Everyone has value. And so I will be voting today because I feel Charlie Kirk had value and he had potential. And we didn't get a chance to experience everything that he was going to be able to contribute, which is highly disappointing.
Councilman Donaldson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. I just want to point out that of the 165 emails that we had received before earlier this morning, we've received more, so it's probably close to 200 now. There were several which were disturbing, a few that were, one was sick, but And there were a few who said I don't remember any that said, I wish I had pulled the trigger, but some said he got what he deserved. A few. But more than 90% were rational letters from citizens who just disagree with Charlie Kirk's, his views on different issues and his way of interacting with students. And they simply said, would you please keep city council apolitical? Will you please stay out of national stuff? Why didn't you do this for the legislators in Minnesota who were shot? Don't start down this path, because how are you going to not do this for the next person on the other side and this side? And you're just going down a bad path. And so I think those are very reasonable emails. And there were a couple similar to what my colleague has pointed out, but I don't want to leave the impression that the majority were like that, or even a significant minority. It was a few.
Councilman Hingham?
Thank you, Madam President. I actually wish we were not dealing with this resolution today, because we have some very important business related to utilities that we need to be voting on. But here we are, and you've heard a number of comments. I agree with everything that Councilmember Donaldson said, and I want to add that I am actually deeply concerned about the First Amendment in the United States. And it was horrendous what happened to Charlie Kirk. It is horrendous when violence happens because someone is expressing their viewpoint, be it on the right, be it on the left, be it whatever it is. That is it's the First Amendment of our Constitution. And so I'm very, very concerned. And so here we are talking about it. I was Sunday at my church, the editor-in-chief of the Boston Globe, Robbie Robinson, who, if any of you saw the movie Spotlight about the scandal in the Catholic Church and the abuse of children, sexual abuse of children, he was the investigative reporter in that situation, and he came to speak to our church about the First Amendment and about freedom of speech. And I stood up and I asked him a question about this resolution today. I said, I'm struggling, because I certainly support free speech and First Amendment, and much of what is written in that resolution, I fully support. What I'm struggling with is the naming of one person who's very polarizing. And you've heard about how many people have written, and so many people are very upset by singling out this one person. And people were suggesting, well, can you add other names? Can you have people on the left and the right? Can you just take his name out and have it be just about free speech? Mr. Robinson said to me, you're in a no-win situation. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So it's an opportunity for education. So the thing that I would like to highlight, and I find this just profoundly disturbing and confusing, because Charlie Kirk and President Trump were clearly very connected. And yet our president publicly asserted that TV networks that are overly critical of him should be shut down. And so it's confusing to me when a talk show host makes comments that are critical of a president and is offended and wants them to shut down. Or that our president has publicly accused the problem of political violence as being driven by radical left-wing lunatics. Were it a radical left-wing person who had been killed and promoting this, would this council be voting on this? I'm not sure. And then you have a professor at the University of South Dakota who's been suspended and is facing termination because of a post on his personal Facebook post sharing his concerns about the statements of Charlie Kirk, the hateful statements of Charlie Kirk. That professor has as much right to make those statements as Charlie Kirk does to make his statements. We all have those rights. So that's what that's what we're talking about here today. And I believe everyone on this dais is a defender of freedom and a defender of freedom of speech. And I suppose we'll see in a vote a very interesting mix of opinions about this particular resolution. It is ironic that we are not taking public comment, and I do disagree with our president that we have allowed people to comment on resolutions before since I've been on council, many, many times. We just did on the public arts. We had someone from the public speaking on that resolution. So we do have very important business to get to, and I think the vast majority of you are here and ready to make your comments to us about solar, so I will stop my comments, but I felt it was important to offer a different perspective. Thank you.
Councilman Gold?
Thank you, Madam President. Today feels heavy, doesn't it? Feels very heavy. You know, I moved to Colorado Springs 4 years ago after living abroad for most of my adult life. I'd come back from a deployment to Kuwait in 2020 that was supposed to be a few months that lasted almost a year. So when I came here in 2021, I felt heavy, but Colorado Springs felt light, it felt positive, it felt hopeful, and I fell in love with the city, and I fell in love with the city because of the people of Colorado Springs. It was a city that just radiated light, like literal 300 days of sunshine, that radiated joy, and I received so much healing through the people of Colorado Springs. Today doesn't feel like that. And that saddens me, it disheartens me, because I believe here at City Council, we have a job to be that light of Colorado Springs. We have that job to be the hope of Colorado Springs. We have the job to instill positivity into our future of Colorado Springs. And what our body is doing and has been doing is failing you. And let me show you some examples. We have failed you with focusing on our city with our Carmen Line annexation that you, the people, overruled. We have failed you with the closure of Meadows Park. We have failed you by wasting your time with not one, but 3 non-sanctuary city resolutions that don't mean anything. We have failed the 1% of our staff of the city of Colorado Springs who we have had to lay off. Those are people who are entering in the 4th quarter of this year with no job. That is failure. We have failed you when we go into 2026 with no fire academy. So I'm asking you, the people, to look at each and every one of us up here. Look at our election timelines and make sure you vote for people who focus on our city and not political performance. Thank you.
I have a motion from Councilman Bailey and a second from Councilman Williams. Let's vote.
And then motion passes on a 5-4 vote.
Moving on to item 5C, will the clerk please read item 5C into the record?